Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing seeuingoa in the 15-minute pool on ICC. I've played this player before, and I've had a recent request to play the Nimzo-Larsen with b3 on move 1, so I will do that and see how it goes. seeuingoa is 1802. They respond with f5. I recall playing this player in a Sicilian, I think, from the black side. But today we're going to get something a little hyper-modern, so playing to control the center from a distance. And black plays d6. This is a intriguing reply to my hypermodern setup. I'm leaning towards playing f4 here just to discourage black from playing e5. And that's consistent with playing b3 and bishop b2, so let's go ahead and play it. If black can play f5, surely I can play f4. That's the principle I'm operating on here. Okay, knight d7. It looks like black is gearing up for e5. So knight f3 would be the way to stop that. Just making sure that black can't punish me tactically. Like if knight f3, e5, f takes e5, d takes e5, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, queen to h4 check. I guess I have bishop g3 there. And I think I cover everything. Yeah, so let's play knight f3. It's nice to get outside the main channels of theory once in a while and just play chess, right? Richard Rapport, the super grandmaster, seems to be able to do that all the time. He has a style where it works for him. I don't know if he's quite a super grandmaster. He might not be over 2,700. I think he was at one point and then has dropped below. Okay, so knight gf6. I could play this with a double fianchetto, so g3 and bishop g2. I could also just play e3 and maybe look to put this bishop on d3. I get the sense that black will probably play g6 and bishop g7 now, so I'm just seeing if there's some way I can arrange my forces in reply to that. Like e3, bishop g7, bishop c4 perhaps, trying to stop black from castling, but knight b6 is probably going to solve any issues related to that. I'd love to play knight g5 and into e6, but that's too obvious. Knight d4 is a little more sophisticated, attacking the f5 pawn and threatening knight e6, but again, black can move this piece, so I don't think that's a problem. I could play c4 and just clamp down on the d5 square. Maybe go like c4, knight c3, queen c2, something along those lines. If I play g3, I think g6, bishop g2, bishop g7, castle, castle will be played. That position's all right, but I feel like I need more of a foothold in the center instead of just this single pawn. Hence f4, or c4 rather, I'm considering. Yeah, let's try that. So c4 and looking to play knight c3 and probably queen c2. Who knows, maybe I'll castle queenside in this game. And as predicted, black does play g6, going for the fianchetto. Okay, so let's play queen c2. If e5, I was thinking of replying with just g3 and defending this f4 pawn. They can advance e4 with tempo then, but I just moved my knight. It should be fine. So black is just content to castle here. Now, I probably don't want to castle quite yet. I think I'm going to hold off on doing anything with my king for now. I have to decide where to put this bishop next, though. So do I put it on the long diagonal, or do I play just e3 and bishop e2, etc.? My only fear in putting it on g2 is that black will go e5, e4 and try to lock it out. Then again, maybe I can play a later d3 if there's a pawn on e4. So let's say g3, e5, bishop g2, e4. Maybe just knight d4 there. Or knight g5, or even knight h4. Knight g5 would threaten knight e6, so that might be the best move. Although I could see my knight later having to go back to a bad square. Unique setup for both players going on. I think I'm going to play e3 and put the bishop on e2 and keep my castling options open. I could go to either wing. I'm not going to try to determine the placement of my king yet. Okay, so bishop e2 looks decent. Let's just play it. I fully expect black to break with that e5 move coming up. They might also go for a5, trying to carve out a square for their knight. They play knight c5 directly. Okay. So I could play b4, but they're going to hop their knight into e4, I think is the plan. I could play d3 to try to take away the e4 square, but that slightly weakens this pawn, so I'm hesitant to do that. Maybe the downside of playing knight c5 is that black can't play e5 next because they would lose a pawn. If they were to play that, they'd have to play it as a sacrifice. I could castle short. If I castle long, I fear that black might start pawn storming me. Also, I don't see a way that I can really press them on the king side. So let's just go short here. I would suspect a5 or possibly a move like rook e8, maybe queen e8 to try to prepare e5. They might play a knight into e4. This player has so many 15-minute games played. 15,700 15-minute games played by seeuingoa. Peak rating of 2064. All right, bishop d7. You know what I could try here is b4, knight ce4, and then knight d1. Because black's knights are kind of stepping on each other's toes. We would call them superfluous pieces as it stands now. Especially if one were to get into e4. So maybe I can afford to avoid a trade and try to prove that that knight on e4 is in fact a bad piece. So b4, knight ce4, knight d1. Looks rather sophisticated, but the threat is d3 after that. So black's going to have to respond to that. Yeah, I'm going to try that. Because I think if I play d3 right away, then black may wise up and play a5, trying to stop b4. So I think it's in my best interest just to play this move immediately and attack the knight. Okay, so we could trade, but knight d1 was my intention. Yeah, let's do it. Interestingly, I was just talking with a student about this concept the other day. The concept of the superfluous piece. And that's what you're seeing here. So a superfluous piece is a piece in your own camp or in your opponent's camp. The same type of piece, like two knights or two rooks, that take away squares from each other. So this situation with black's knights, knight on f6 is feeling a little left out because it wants to go to e4 as well. But of course, you can only occupy a square with one piece at a time. So by avoiding this trade, I'm trying to prove that this knight is bad. If I were to have just taken, then black would happily take back with their knight, and I think they would be satisfied with that swap and the position of the remaining knight on the central square. So you notice this a lot with knights and rooks, as I said. Sometimes rooks can compete for the same squares. Actually, not even sometimes, just very often that will happen. You don't see it with bishops, of course, because bishops are on opposite colors, so by definition, they can't interfere with each other. So the knight goes back to e8, so in doing that, they prepare this retreat square. That makes a lot of sense. I'm probably going to swap the dark square bishops here. I'm just deciding if I want to be the one to initiate it, or should I let black do that? Hard to say. If I take on g7, they might take with this knight, but I don't know that I even really care about that. I could play d3. They'll probably play bishop takes b2 then. Queen takes b2, knight back to f6. I'm going to initiate the swap myself. I kind of like my queen on c2. Maybe it could help with c5 later. And black takes with the king. Okay, I was expecting knight, but they take with the king. So, do we kick this knight? I'm thinking we should. Yeah, let's do it. So, force it back to f6. Now, I get the sense black might want to undermine my queenside pawn structure, so with a move like a5. I could play a4 right now so that if a5 I can push past with b5. That looks alright, doesn't it? So a4, a5, b5. Yeah, looks okay. I'll keep this knight defending the pawn for now. I think that's alright. We've moved a lot of pawns so far. The a pawns through the f pawn. We're down some time, but I like my position. Looks good and flexible to me. Okay, here maybe c5. Trying to carve out the e5 square. I'm a little concerned about a5 still, though. I wonder if c5, if they'll go a5 and try to attack this guy. I could play a5 myself. So c5, a5, what would I do there if that were to be played? Take d6. They take b4. I probably can't defend this pawn, though, I think is the problem. Maybe queen c3 right now? Yeah, let's try queen c3. So just observing black's king on g7, pinning this knight. Now my queen is also looking at the a5 square. Black is conceding a space advantage. They're just kind of sitting back and awaiting developments. Their light square bishop isn't so good, but nor is mine. Okay, b6. This is a good sign. I like that move for me because I feel like black is just curling up and allowing me to arrange my pawns as I wish. So again, I'm looking at c5, this breakthrough move. I could also play e4. Maybe e4 is worth considering. And then e5 becomes a big deal. Let's give that a try. That looks promising. And in doing so, I might give my knight the e3 square. Or it could come to f2 if needed. If black moves the king, I'll probably press ahead with e5. Sometimes with these real extreme flank openings, like b3 on move 1, you get prolonged pawn tension battles. Like you notice that no pawns have been exchanged so far, because you avoid a direct clash in the center, as happens with many conventional openings. Okay, so finally black makes a kind of a fighting back move here. I could take, or I could push b5. I could even play e5, although e5 they're going to take. My first instinct was to take. But maybe push and keep the space edge? I mean, is there a real compelling reason to take? Yeah, let's push. Let's try to cramp them further. I think I'll have the option of e5 on the next move anyways. So why make black's life easier by taking on c5? I feel like black will have to move their king soon. I don't know how long they can tolerate the king being in the middle of the board. Or not in the middle of the board. On the same diagonal as my queen. Okay, let's capture. What's the idea here? e5. Wow, radical. I had a glance at this, but I didn't think it was like a valid option for black. But maybe I should have looked at it longer. So if I take, they're going to take on e4, I think is their plan. But then their knight gets kind of in trouble, doesn't it? Queen e3, attacking that, and they can't go back to f6. Yeah, I'm going to take. I think if knight takes e4, queen e3, and I don't really see what they do with this piece. They could play bishop f5, but g4 would deflect the bishop, and I might just win that knight. Yeah, let's do this. Where are you going, Mr. Knight? This is a nice move. It covers g5 as well. So we have the queen and the knight on that square. So if bishop f5, g4, bishop takes g4, queen takes e4, and that looks like a straight piece to me. Black doesn't have nearly enough compensation. I weakened my king slightly by having to play g4, but the piece is worth it. So they're just going to go back and give up the piece. Yeah, rather depressing. That's pretty much game. And black does resign. Okay, so things concluded rapidly after we got our pawns going in the center with e4. I think black just played too passively after I started pushing. Knight d1 was kind of a nifty positional move, whereupon I set my pawn structure in motion and tried to avoid trades. The other aspect of this is, knight d1, not only am I trying to prove that black has trouble with these superfluous knights, but also I feel like my slight space advantage, like having pawns on c4 and f4, could count for something, so I'm trying to squeeze them and avoid trades. That's another reason to play in this manner. I think the position started to get pretty dire for black right around here after e4. They might be solidly worse at this point. I think a move like b6 is just too slow under the circumstances. I think they need to play more boldly, maybe a5, something along those lines, or maybe play king g8 and just get out of the issues on this diagonal. That would at least cause me to prepare e4 better, like play knight f2 and looking to play e4 later. Okay, let's go back and have a look. So b3 move 1. I have played this over the board before. I don't have a very good record with it, though. I remember losing a game to Grandmaster Josh Friedel and also to one of my friends, International Master Keaton Kiera, when we were both kids. In both cases, I was trying this move just to surprise them, and yeah, I went 0 for 2. I'm sure I played it a couple other times, maybe against some lower-rated players. But there are some players who can make this move a viable weapon. I mentioned the Hungarian Grandmaster, Richard Rapport, young player who does well with these flank setups, and he seems to thrive in the positions they produce. Also, Badur Jobava. I remember a few years ago where he went on a tear with b3 on move 1, and he was just killing everyone with this move. Like, just making seasoned grandmasters look silly after one b3. So just a queenside fianchetto. Yeah, and black played f5 on move 1 and then d6. So I decided to play f4, just trying to stop black from playing e5. Knight d7, knight f3. So I think if they do this, the only thing I have to watch out for is black's queen coming to h4. But if they do it here, I have g3. And then if queen e4 trying to hit the knight and the rook, I can just drop this knight back and cover, and I'm up a pawn. Likewise, if we get a trade first, and then black gives this check, here g3 would be a mistake because of queen e4, and black would win a piece. But I have bishop g3, so I just had to foresee that move. Blocking, and I think if queen here, probably just knight c3, maybe f4, bishop f2. It doesn't look like black is coming up with anything here. Probably knight d5 is also good. Attacking the queen, the pawn. c7, he's even attacked. So I don't believe black can just break through in the center immediately based on how I've played it, but let's add the engine just to confirm. Yeah, the engine gives what black played. Now I decided to use this little pincer idea. Pawns on f4 and c4. Trying to control the center without using the e and the d pawns. Because if I play something like d4, looking to stop e5, well, then I block my bishop, and I also create a weakness onto e4. So this move may be playable, but I feel it's not really in the spirit of b3 on move 1. Usually white tries to keep this diagonal unobstructed by pawns. Okay, but here black can play e5. What does that work? Let's see that. So e5, if I fall for the bait, does something very bad happen to me? Knight g4, attacking the bishop. Okay, let's just say I come back here, and now f4, nasty. And now queen h4 check is an issue. Also, my development is stunted. So white's in bad shape, according to the computer. I don't think either of us was really looking at e5 here, because it seems like the circumstances haven't changed much compared to e5 on the previous move, but black does have an extra knight out, and the engine claims that's why black can look forward to this continuation, because they can plop the knight in on g4 and cause some problems. So if e5 had been played, I probably would have thought about it for a while and maybe played e3 or g3 ultimately and just guard the f4 pawn. But if black can play e5 and make me play one of these moves, then certainly they should. Instead, though, we just had development from both sides. I put the queen on c2. Again, e5 is a good idea for black. Yeah, in here, the computer even gives black an advantage. I'm not sure why they didn't go for e5. I mean, I didn't think it was that big of a deal if I had to play this way, but you can see the eval. The computer thinks black is doing well. Instead, though, they never went for that. They played c6 and then put the knight in on c5. Yeah, here again, e5. I'd say knight c5 right away is a little strange. Usually you'd want to preface that move with a5, so you don't have to worry about white kicking you with b4. Maybe at some stage I could play this knight g5 jump and try to get into e6. But black played knight c5, and I just castled. So if I castle long, the problem, I think, is black's king is very safe, and I don't really see how I'm going to organize a good pawn storm using my h and g pawns. Whereas the a and the b pawns have more potential. And maybe black could even play b5 somewhere as a sacrifice, trying to open the c file. I've got my queen and my king sitting on the c file. Even just a5, a4 is probably a good plan. a5, a4, a3, hit the dark square bishop. So I did not castle queenside because black's attack looks like it would be more promising than anything I could muster on the king side. So I went short. Bishop d7. Yeah, I think, again, a5 should be played. Maybe I could try the same idea I utilized in the game, but just do it a move earlier, huh? Right here, and now knight d1. That deserves attention. I felt like castling right away was normal, but if I'm going to play this way, maybe I should just do it immediately. So castle, bishop d7, yep, b4, knight here. All right, and the engine approves of knight d1. This is a cool idea. Once you start noticing superfluous pieces in positions, it's something you can add to your strategic arsenal. You feel cool playing moves like this versus just the pedestrian exchange. So again, to summarize this idea, we're really playing against this knight on f6. I'm trying to make this knight unemployed because only one knight can occupy e4. And d3 becomes a threat. We're not allowing black to trade knights, which would have happened if I had played d3 immediately. Black is just going to take here. So knight d1, and black wisely moves their knight away. I thought here they might want to take with the knight rather than the king, but the computer says they're about the same. I just felt like knight takes leaves black less exposed, and maybe their knight can hop into e6 later. So king takes. I push d3, just kicking the knight back. And here I started expanding with my pawns, so a4. So now I felt like I had a comfortable edge. I didn't think it was a huge edge, but I liked my space. It seemed like I had a clear plan involving pushing on the queen side. I've stopped e5 for now, so black doesn't have like a counter break they can easily organize. And now e6, and I think you're going to see the evaluation go up even further in white's favor over the next few moves because e6, b6 just strikes me as too passive for the position. I feel like black needs to strike somehow with, like, say the a pawn, at least make me do this, and maybe even swap and play rook c8, something along those lines. Or possibly get this knight off the back rank, like maybe knight c7. Just hunkering down and pushing the pawns to the 6th rank isn't challenging. So here I played queen c3, just lining up with the king. The engine wants to do something similar. It says queen b2. So I was focusing on the e5 square, already thinking about ways I can get my knight in here. I would like to play c5, trying to force this pawn to take or advance. But a5 scared me off. I didn't like this counter thrust. attacking the base of the mini pawn chain here, b4, c5. So queen c3 just looked useful to pin this knight. Also, I have another attacker on a5. And I can postpone a decision regarding my pawn structure. Yeah, so black played b6, but once more, you can see the evaluation. The price of every move is getting higher for black. This is what happens when you make too many passive moves in a row. There might be just one move that puts it over the edge. And here I went e4. And now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns on the 4th rank. Massive space advantage, and the idea of pushing e5. So, desperate times for black. Here they push c5. I really think I would have been inclined to play king g8 somewhere right around here. Because it's difficult to believe black can get by without getting their king off of the diagonal of my queen. I think they have to play that move sooner or later. You see king g8, top move. Instead, c5 was played. And here I was getting a little low on time. So I was debating between like b5, take, and also e5. b5 seems simplest. It might not be the best, but at least I'm keeping my space advantage here, and I still have a nice position in the center and the possibility of e5. Yeah, the engine seems to think it's okay. It also says e5 immediately is good. And then if takes, probably I want to take with the knight rather than the pawn. Even though the pawn capture would win a tempo on the knight, it blocks off this diagonal, and it prevents my knight from getting into the promised land, e5. So I'm sure I would have taken this way. But even this looks more challenging than the game because I'm not quite sure what white's plan is from here. I mean, I see that I can bring my pieces into nice follow-up positions, like bishop f3 hitting this, probably knight e3 or knight f2, maybe rook ae1. But I would have to work pretty hard to break black down from here, provided they don't blunder. So I played b5. Black took. I took. And now they went e5, so a risky operation. I mean, pushing in the center for black now is going to be risky either way. I saw the computer was recommending d5 for a moment. Is that just a pawn sacrifice? So let's say I take this way, take, and take here. Because they can't take back, remember, due to this pin. So yeah, the engine says black should just try to sacrifice a pawn and continue. Yeah, that seems pretty desperate. Well, if black plays a move like king g8, probably I'm just advancing unopposed anyways. Knight h5, g3, d5. Okay, well, at least in this line, black is not losing a pawn. Queen d3, attacking this. Knight c7, knight e3. Bishop c8. We can just see based on the flow of the play that white is in the driver's seat here. Bishop takes h5, pressure on this pawn. Maybe bishop f3 or rook ad1 coming soon. But black played e5. We took. And now they took on e4, which just appears to be losing after queen e3, losing a piece. Their last chance to avoid losing the piece was d takes e5, but then queen takes. That's just a clean pawn, and also it's a pretty nasty one to be down. I have great control over d5, so I see the engine likes a plan of bringing the knight into d5 after this. Black still probably needs to waste time playing king g8. So knight takes e4, queen e3, and black went back and immediately resigned after we took. And again, this knight has no squares. If bishop f5 to support the knight, I was going to play g4. Just deflect the bishop and then take here. Similar to the game, we just win a piece. Okay, so a quick game, but I think this game showed some nice elements of flank play. So trying to control the center with your pieces and also with your flank pawns. Like here I had my c and my f pawns working to control e5 and d5. Also, this game illustrated the concept of the superfluous piece. Black having these two knights that were stepping on each other's toes. Remember that a superfluous set of pieces can be in your own camp or in your opponent's camp. Knights or rooks. And if you notice that your opponent has superfluous pieces, make sure you don't trade for that piece so easily. Like if I had just simply swapped the knights here, then this knight gets into e4. But by avoiding the trade, I threaten d3, and I try to prove that this knight is poorly placed. All right, hope you guys enjoyed this game, and I'll be back again soon with another video. Talk to you guys later. Bye.